We are going to talk about how to present your research today, and we're not referring to how to present your research in a setting where you have like kind. So if you're a communication person, I'm not talking about how I present communication research to other communication research people. We're talking more broad picture. So when you are presenting research to a broader audience. So this is kind of the highlights of what we're going to do today. We're going to start talking about your audience. Who is your audience? How do you identify your audience? And that's vital for coming up with the right things to say to people. Next thing we're going to talk about is nonverbals. Nonverbals are something that most people overlook, but they are essential when you are doing a short presentation specifically. When you are trying to get somebody's attention, you want to make sure that you have your nonverbals right. Then we'll actually talk about the speech or the pitch part, what you're going to say to people. And then we're going to talk about how you actually keep their attention. So once you have them engaged, how do you maintain that long enough for you to tell them whatever it is that you think that they need to know? So first of all, let's talk about knowing your audience. Who is your audience? So you need to figure out why you want to talk to this person. What are you trying to get out of them? Are you trying to get a job? Are you trying to do a grasp type presentation where you're trying to have a research competition of some sort? Are you trying to sell them something? Are you trying to get them to invest in whatever it is that you want to do? Who is your audience? And you need to know that because you change what you say slightly. What matters in what you say changes based on who you're trying to talk to. So before you go into any situation where you are trying to explain your research, know who's at the other end. Who are you talking to? And look at it from their perspective. What is it that they want to know? And that's where you need to go to keep moving. So what is that person most concerned about? If they are a business person and you're trying to convince them to invest in your company or into your widget or whatever it is, are they concerned about the bottom line? Are they concerned about opportunities for their employers? Are they concerned about how this is going to impact production? What do they want to know? If you can figure out that, that gives you a big advantage. And the second bit of that is what big picture are they interested in? So think about it from your audience's perspective. Are they really interested in the methods that you use to get your information? Do they really want to know how many participants you surveyed? Do they really actually care what tests you ran? Or do they want to know the bigger picture of significance? Do they want to know the why we should care part? Usually when you're talking to a general audience, it's more about significance. It's less about individual data, but it's more about results. So we don't want to give them a whole bunch of information that just comes rushing at them and goes right over their head, and they don't even know how to process it. We want to figure out who these people are, figure out what they want to know, and feed that to them as quickly as possible. Because once you get them engaged, then you've got them for a longer time period. So, emotion, that's the why do we care? What's in it for me here? We'll get to that part in a minute. And then the data. And by data, I mean results. What kind of thing do they want? So here we go with the idea of what's in it for me. And this is where I'm going to bring up Sandy here. And she's going to talk about this great WIFM abbreviation.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's so nice to see so many people here on a Friday afternoon when it's really nice outside. So thank you so much for making us feel good about that. We're very happy about that. I wanted to give you a little bit more history about myself because I'm not really an expert in WIFM, but WIFM was my life for about 14 years. I was a pharmaceutical sales rep before I came back to Wichita State and got my graduate degree in communication. And we learned and had it shoved down our faces, the WIFM. What's in it for me? Why should I care? So if you can think about it in this particular realm, I have a particular pharmaceutical drug to sell. Let's say it's an antihypertensive. I have this drug to sell to a doctor. I can run into the doctor and say, blah, da, 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 no side effects, it's very cost effective, old people like it, you can mix it with other drugs, you don't have to worry about taking it with food, all those kinds of things, right? Every single feature and advantage that the drug has. But if I am not talking specifically about that little old lady that's sitting in the waiting room who has a whole lot of problems health-wise, not the least of which is her hypertension, if I can't explain and articulate the reason why the doctor should use my drug for that little old lady, it's the WIFM factor. So I can give the Madison Avenue brochure talk to this doctor, but if I'm not talking to him specifically about his patient profile that he's interested in, then it doesn't matter if my drug solves world hunger. He doesn't care. Does that make sense to you all? All right, so I kind of need to know in this WIFM factor, what disciplines do we have in here this afternoon? Do I have physics? Do I have business? Do I have,
I think I can tell you,
what
Sandy.
do I have? Because they're really quiet, so I know they're not comm people. And I don't mean CALM, I mean COMM.
Human performance, health professions, physical therapy, lots of physical therapy, MLAS, biology, MPA, PA, aerospace, we've got everybody. Physician
Wow.
assistant, aging, performing arts, engineering.
Where's my performing
EE?
arts person? And you
Awesome.
didn't say anything. Oh. That's just awesome.
Perfect.
That's awesome. All right, so thank you very much,
MFA?
Lisa. So, in your disciplines, are you in graduate school, or are some of you trying to actually go for your PhDs, or are you in your PhD program now? You're in your PhD, and what's your area of expertise? Aerospace engineering. My dad has his PhD in that. I just want you to know I'm not that bright. So if you were going to talk to me and you had this incredible item that you wanted to sell me, or this incredible idea that you came up with, don't talk to me like my dad talked to me when he was trying to teach me college algebra, because it didn't work. Instead, what's in it for me is it going to make my life better? If I give you this many dollars, are you going to give me a great return on my investment? That's what I care about. Does that make sense? All right, so I've got one PhD person in aerospace engineering. What else? Anybody else PhD? How about you?
Mechanical.
Mechanical engineering? Mechanical engineering, all right. I got nothing. I got nothing. So somebody like me, same exact thing, if you were gonna try to talk to me about a poster that you have, if I happen to be a judge on a panel for the poster that you have to be able to articulate to me so that I understand it, right? Anybody in here work with string theory, or have you worked with string theory? Okay, so none of you know me, and you're probably happy about that right now, but I tell a lot of stories when I teach, because I think visually, if we can paint a visual portrait for students, and if students can relate to the concept that I'm trying to teach, then I think they hold on to it longer. So I taught a geology class for Lisa's husband, Dr. Parcell, the other Dr. Parcell in geology, and I had students in there who were doing research on rocks,
A lot of
and
that in geology.
oil. It was a real struggle for them to try to dumb down what they were saying so that I understood what they were saying, and it was equally a hard time for me, who's just trying to get them to kind of come up and smile and actually be. It's okay if you look me in the eye and smile, right? But I had one young woman who was getting 2 degrees, one in physics, one in geology, and this young lady is so brilliant, she's probably going to save the world. But her research was on string theory. And so I said, okay, tell me, why should I invest in your program? I do not know what she said, because it was string theory. But what I do know is that she was so eloquent in teaching me, she realized this audience member does not know what it is you're talking about. So she made it so that I understood string theory, and by the time she was finished, I looked at her and said, if I had $1 million, I'd invest it. It was so interesting. Plus, she made it something that I thought was really beneficial for humanity. So that's the WIFIT. That's the WIFM. That's the WIFM. What's in it for me?
I worked at Georgia Tech, GTRI, Georgia Tech Research Institute, which is Georgia Institute of Technology, Georgia Tech's, kind of their version of the Innovation Campus, except it's been around for about 100 years. And
It's no longer innovative.
it's no longer innovative, yeah. But my job was a PR person, and so my job was to work with scientists, mostly engineers, and get them to tell me what it is they did so that I could write it up and explain to people why what Georgia Tech was doing anybody would care about, right? because Georgia Tech relies on funding. They rely on public funding. They're a public institution, and they relied on grant funding. And so if I could help researchers take their very complicated ideas and synthesize it down into something that the general public could understand, they were much more likely to get the attention of the media, which as much as you love it or hate it, actually does help you in funding, and to get the attention of funders who often get their funding ideas from the media. We don't kind of like to think of it that way. We like to think that there's a process where you just apply for grants and you apply for NSF grants, and you apply for things that we all know what they are, but quite often private investors find out about something in other ways. So being able to synthesize what you're doing, know who your audience is, know that it's a general audience, and take a very complex thing that you've been working on for often, when you're even later in your career, for decades, and synthesize it down into a couple sentences is difficult, but essential. So this, you guys got the first step, that idea of figuring out who your audience is and how do you synthesize that down to be able to figure out what they want to know. So now we're going to move on to nonverbals. Nonverbals speak volumes. Nonverbals are all the things that you do when you think you're not communicating. There's a saying in communication that says you cannot not communicate. Communication is always happening. Let me give you an example. Anybody been in a relationship with a significant other and they're suddenly not speaking to you or looking at you? Are they communicating? Did you get the message? Yeah, they're communicating. They are trying very hard not to say anything that sounds like communicating, but you know darn well you're in trouble. So you're always communicating. Everything you wear is communicating. Everything you say is communicating. Every time you look at somebody in the face, you're communicating. In some way, you are communicating. So nonverbals themselves are defined by both culture and how well you know somebody. So culture helps determine things like how closely you stand next to somebody. They help determine things like how you introduce yourself, whether you look somebody in the eye when you're talking to them, what words you use to introduce yourself. Let's see, what are some other good examples? It's kind of everything.
I love to teach. This is my favorite thing to teach in Com 190. I have over 200 students in my Com 190 class, and we're from all over the world, every discipline all over the world. So I know from speaking to some of these students that eye contact with somebody in authority is not acceptable in some cultures. So if you are an American like me, or a United States American like me, and I would go to a country where that's not the norm, looking me in the eye isn't the norm, I would have a really hard time with that because I would think, I'm not getting through. Is this on? I'm offending somebody, something like that, when actually it's the exact opposite. It's a sign of respect not to have eye contact with that person. It's also a form of respect not to ask a question of the professor, which makes me crazy because I always want people to talk. So it's that kind of thing, knowing the nonverbals in your particular arena in which you are interacting so that you can most effectively and quite honestly, in some cases, not offend those people to whom you are speaking.
Yes. That's
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Just go over here.
It's also tied to your relationship. So if you know somebody very well, the way that you use nonverbals is going to differ. So if I walked up to these people who are walking down the street, I walked up to them, hugged them, and kissed them on the cheek, I might get arrested, right? If I saw my husband, my kids, my mother, any of those people, and walked up to them and saw them and gave them a hug and kiss on the cheek, it would be perfectly acceptable. So the idea here is to understand what that means, what the cultural norms are for wherever you are. So if you are not an American citizen and you go home to somewhere else, play by those rules. If you are here, try to understand the rules here and try as best you can, without making yourself thoroughly uncomfortable, to play by these rules. So what's that mean? So here, we get excited. This is particularly important for research when you're talking to a general audience and you have taken this thing, we were just talking about this back here, you have taken this thing that you've been working on forever and you've had to distill it down to this little nugget that you are not at all excited about anymore because it sounds boring to you, right? All the fun bits are now gone. But that's why it's important to stay excited. So you act like you're excited. If you act like you are excited, you will continue to hold that person's attention, and then you can get to the more exciting bits in your opinion. But you gotta keep them with you. So a lot of smiling, a lot of acting excited. Try to make your voice go up rather than down. Try to look people in the eye. Dress professionally is a big one. Figure out what the norm is for whatever your meeting you're going to. I'll give you an example of communication. In communication, there are a number of different sub-disciplines within the communication discipline. There are the journalism people as one. There are the broadcast people as another. There are the advertising public relations people as another, and the speech comm as another. Okay, 4 just different general groups. Journalism people, perfectly acceptable to wear jeans and a button-down shirt to a conference. Broadcast people, what do broadcast people do? Yes. High heels, do your nails, your heels, the whole shebang, right? You look good. Advertising PR, we're in the image business. Got to look the part. Speech comm, more casual, more look like a professor, what you would think of as your tweedy jacket and your khakis, right? So know who you're presenting to. Try to work that in. Along the same idea, you're going to be standing up a lot. This is not the time to break out your great shoes. Make sure that you're comfortable. So whatever you wear, don't wear sweats, but whatever you wear, if it's a professional looking outfit, make sure that you're not fiddling with it the whole time because you look like you have bugs. All right? Try to wear something that you are comfortable wearing, that you feel confident in. Be clean. I know that sounds like a stupid thing to say, but make sure that you have everything scrubbed out of your fingernails. I know, like I said, that sounds like a dumb thing to say, but I've had this conversation with our grad students. And the other one is stand up straight. Americans are big proponents in the stand up straight. Always stand up straight. Look like you know what you're doing, and people will believe you know what you're doing. Very subtle nonverbal, but it's important. Okay, so let's say we're going to introduce ourselves. How do you introduce yourself? You all know the hi, how are you, right? There is a very, Sandy?
Oh, yeah.
I need you. Okay. When you're doing a conference poster presentation, it is awkward. You have people milling around, they're all standing about, you don't know who you to address first. Pick one and just start. And you say, hi, Lisa
Hi.
Purcell, nice to meet you.
Hi, nice to meet you, Lisa.
Okay, now, because I am getting feedback, because I am right here and I have her attention, I've got her. So I've got just a few minutes now to reel her in and get the information that I want. We also need to be standing closer. So we would be standing this close to talk. Does that make sense? If you are uncomfortable standing this close to somebody, practice. You don't know anything else to say. You've got to be close enough to them that they can actually understand what you're saying and feel like you are engaged. So you want to do...
Too close.
What? Too close. Real example.
A real
This close.
example, really. This is a little too intimate. This is
Yeah.
just too intimate.
The usual rule is 3 feet. In America, it's 3 feet. In Asian cultures, it's larger for this, but in our culture, it's about 3 feet. If it is really, really noisy, the acceptable norm is to lean in, not move in. Does that make sense? You lean in and talk. That's okay. Moving your feet, not so much. They think you're going to kiss them. Makes them nervous. So, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, make eye contact, introduce yourself, shake hands, you get it. So while you're talking, this is the 3 feet, stand about 3 feet away from somebody. Like I said, if you need to lean in, that's fine. Don't scoot in closer to them, you'll freak them out. Speak clearly and speak loudly. It is very common in many cultures to be very soft-spoken. And while that is respected in many, many cultures, in the American culture, give it up. We want to hear you, and we want to hear you confidently, and we want to hear that you're so impressed with your work that you're going to stand up and speak loudly. As again, it's that confidence thing. Gets us in trouble overseas, but that's kind of an American thing. Smile. Don't do this. This is nonverbal for I am done. Okay? Remember your mother. That is definitely I am through. And the last one is don't fiddle with things. Don't fiddle with your hair, don't fiddle, even if you're nervous. There is a trick that we teach our comm students, if you are nervous, that you can do without showing anything. There is a pressure point in the roof of your mouth. Honest to goodness. Sandy's laughing at me. If you take your tongue and you push it up to the roof of your mouth, it will calm you. And that's something you can do without showing anybody that you're nervous. So you want to stand still as much as you can. If you're really, really nervous, just put your tongue in the roof of your mouth and you're not talking, and that will help calm you down. It also gives you something to concentrate on. Okay. Don't do it while you're talking. It doesn't work. Okay, so when do you know when you've lost them? Losing eye contact is the big one. If they start looking around, they're looking for an escape route. So you either need to ask them a question. Is there anything else you want to know? Can I explain anything better? Which brings it back to them, because remember that anytime you present, it's all about them. It's not about you, it's about them. So get them engaged again. Either ask them a question, or if you think you're done, thank them for coming. Thanks for coming by. Would you like one of my cards? Thanks for coming by. Can I send you something? In conferences, it's very, very common, at least in our discipline, I think for many, to follow up with an email. So if they give you your card, you can follow up and say, thanks for coming by, I appreciate it. If you want to send them a copy of your information, your poster, whatever, again, go with your discipline's rules. But it's common for them to say, can I have a copy of this? Can you send me your results after they're published? And so you kind of follow up with those. So you also want to, as you're talking here, as they move away, like I said, say, thank you for coming. We'll get to this more in a minute, but don't turn your back on them until they've left, because it immediately shows that you're done with them. You want them to be done with you, not the other way around. Okay, so what do we actually say? So we've got all this nonverbal, introduce yourself. How do you actually put this into words so you're talking to an audience that doesn't really understand your discipline? Well, we're gonna start with Aristotle, which sounds big and lofty, but it's really important. So Aristotle said that there are three things: the ethos, pathos, and logos. And what the argument is here is that you need all three of these things in order to get across your idea. So Aristotle would argue that just having logic, just having facts, just having data is not effective in persuading anybody that what you're doing is important. On the other hand, just having emotion is also not effective. You need to have some facts and some logic to back it up. We'll get to credibility in a minute. Let me give you an example. How many of you guys have ever seen the President's State of the Union address? Ever? Okay, because they're all the same. Huge crowds. Huge. Oh, I'm going to get so much trouble here. Okay, so the President's State of the Union address, they have figured out that there is a formula for engaging an audience. And that formula says you give a certain amount of facts and statistics and information. At some point, and they're pretty good at judging this, everybody's eyes glaze over, and then you bring in the emotional piece. So let me give you an example. Let's say we're going to talk about health care. I'm going to try to convince you in the State of the Union address that we need to do something about health care. So I'm going to say, in America, there are blah, 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 blah people unemployed that can't afford health care. Statistics show that if you don't have health care, that it can do this, 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 and this to your credit. That we have this number of people show up in hospitals every year who don't have health care and can't get the care they need. But I want to introduce George. George, would you stand up? Okay, George. George here is an American citizen. He's a plumber. George is from Detroit. George has been working for years. Last year, George was working on a project, and he got injured. Now, George has 5 kids. He has no health insurance. George is not able to provide for his family. They have since taken 3 of his kids into foster care because George can't care for them. George is suffering with enough medical bills that he'll never be able to afford a house again. We can't do this to George. Right? What are you going to remember? George, right? Now, once you compare George, then what they're going to do, and they always do it, is you go back to the facts. Now, we know that in America, if we invest this amount of money into this project, that we will be able to cover people like George. See where we're going with this? You pull it back together. So Aristotle had it right. You've got to have both. So when you think about your own research, no matter what you're doing, it could be something that is so tied to creating widgets that you can't possibly understand what the emotional appeal will be. There is one. You just need to keep thinking about it. Not everybody is going to save the world. Not everybody is going to come up with a solution for world hunger. But everybody is going to make a contribution in society that will somehow make things better. You just need to figure out what that is. So when you are thinking about your speech, what you actually say, try to include some bit of the emotion. And the emotion is often, for our purposes, the significance, the why do we care part. What's in it for me? What's the big picture here? And then the logos is often the facts. What does my data say? Where does this take us next? What are my next steps? And then the ethos you have by walking in the door. So when you introduce yourself and you say, hi, I'm Lisa Purcell, I'm from Wichita State University, and my research is, you have given yourself the credibility. You look the part, you act the part, you talk the part, you got that down, and you can move on. Make sense? Everybody remember George still? Keep it tight. And this is where we get the storytelling part. You want to make your research sound like a story. It sounds counterintuitive. People remember stories much better than facts. We just talked about that with George. So if you tell your research as a story, you start with the significance, you start with a big part, you start with a 2793, which we'll get to in a minute, but then you want to tell it like a story. You can say, I got interested in it because. Think of the number of people that you know who are doctors who got interested in it because there was somebody in their family that suffered from blah, blah, blah. Think about the number of medical researchers that get into it because they wanted to help a specific thing for a specific reason. Why are you into this? It could be simply, I have a 13-year-old kid who has been an aerospace engineering nut since he was 2. So that may be his story. I have always been fascinated with airplanes. I have always been fascinated with this. And so this is part of my story. Make that brief, but it pulls people in. And then talk about it as a story. I was interested in this. This is the problem. Here's how I went about trying to solve the problem. These are my results. This is what I found. Just like you would tell a story. So emphasize significance, tell a story. The next two are tied together. Avoid jargon, because nobody knows what you're talking about. So anything that's very, very specific, try to avoid. And the way you test that is by dragging in a friend or your mother or somebody else that's a significant other and trying to talk them through it. And when they give you the, what are you talking about look, yeah, that's the word you take out. So back it up. But that's where friends and family really are handy. And they don't mind, buy them a drink, buy them coffee, do whatever it is, but let them sit there and be guinea pigs so you can talk through whatever it is you're going to say at GRASP and see if it makes sense to them. Along the same lines, keep it short. And you can tell by talking to somebody that you care about. If you're talking to your significant other and their eyes glaze over halfway through, you lost them. If you can't keep mom, you're done. So go back and try to make it shorter again. Get back to that significance part. What is it they really, really, really need to know? And then the last bit is show your enthusiasm. Make sure that whatever you say, you keep the same enthusiasm toward the end, all the way to the end. So now we're going to talk about the 2793. So I'm going to drag Sandy back up here.
Alrighty. Have you ever heard of 2793? Yeah, this is a concept that I didn't hear until I had one of my students tell me about this. She has in the past worked for the Democratic Committee in Wichita, and this is what they teach their candidates, 2793, 27 words, 9 seconds, 3 main points, and from that, news sources can get their sound bites. And you want to make sure those 27 words in 9 seconds and 3 points are the 27 words that you want to convey to your audience. I thought this was really mind-blowing, so I've incorporated it in my classes. And so we're going to actually do 2793, all right? It's not fair of me to have you do it if I don't do it first, right? So I came up with my own. I came up with a marriage proposal, which has absolutely nothing to do with any of your research, but go with me. All right. So picture this. You have a couple, very close. One of the people in the relationship has decided this is the time. I want to ask this person to marry me. I have 3 main goals. I want to articulate my love for this person. I want to articulate this is an adventure that we can do together, and we can do this for our lifetime. Those are my 3 main points: love, adventure, lifetime. So here it goes. Are you ready? You can time me if you want. I don't know if it's 9 seconds, but it's close. I love you, and I want to marry you, to be with you on this life adventure. say you'll marry me, and share our lifetime together forever. 27 words. Are you ready? He was like, okay, all right. All right. It's actually, it sounds daunting to do because you think of all this research that you've done, or you think of all the things, all the features that a widget has. But I will tell you, with my past sales experience, you have about 9 seconds to keep the attention of a very busy person. Make sure that you get the most important information off to that person in the 9 seconds that you have. In other areas, we call this an elevator speech, so it's similar to that. So we're going to pass out paper, and we want you all to come up with your 2793.
Now we're going to talk briefly about how you actually keep somebody's attention. So you got their attention with the 2793. You've told them what they wanted to hear. You've told them what's in it for them. You've told them the significance. You've explained your 3 points. So how do you then keep them engaged in what you're talking about and keep them listening? I'm in the wrong place again. Use images whenever possible. When you create, especially a poster for GRASP, images speak louder than words. So if you will look over here, we have 2 examples, one behind Sandy and one right there. They are 2 posters. This is one that my husband and I did. This is one that my husband did with some grad students. This is your more traditional, lots of words, right? This is more what we're recommending. So we're not recommending the one that I had an involvement with. That's fine. The reason we're recommending this is because it is so visual. Think about the competition that you have. If you're at GRASP, if you're at any of those conferences that are poster presentations, it is a room filled with posters. Your goal is to get people to come over and look at yours. Think bright, shiny things. There is a reason that advertising works, and it's because it grabs your attention. The more images that you can put in there, the better. Now, the other advantage is, if you are standing here, I can't read any of that beyond the titles. So as you're walking through the room, looking at the posters, you can't read squat. You only are able to read it once you get up in front of it. And so the visuals give you some clue as to what it's about before you get there, which makes your brain start processing what this poster is about, and it starts to help you get your head wrapped around what it is. So when you put together your own posters, try to use as many visual images as you can. Go light on the references. And Carrie and I were talking about this before. There are different rules of thought of where you put messages. Now, there are 2 kind of power spots, if you will, and they're very similar to what we use in journalism and communication, in that our eyes in Western culture go up the top left, right? That's where you put your important stuff. That's where your lead story is in a newspaper. That's where your big image is on the cover of a magazine, top left. And then you go toward the end. So wherever you're going to stand, put your body in front of your references. So if you know what your poster, there you go. If you know what your poster is going to look like and how much space you have, if you can possibly put them there, I can still see all the important stuff. I recognize that there are references because I can see that there's a reference section there. So I believe you that you have the credibility and you knew what you're talking about. But I don't really want to read those unless I care whether I'm cited. Then trust me, I'll get you to move. But the idea is you want to get everybody's attention with some big colorful thing. So we have abstracts there. Make your abstract colored if you possibly can. Get everybody to draw their attention to. And then make the rest of it engaging in a visually appealing way. Getting 6 tons of feedback. Scoot forward. Okay. So color wisely. Visualize as much data as you possibly can so that your audience can figure it out as quickly as possible. So let me go down to the next one. Again, stand up straight. Make sure that everybody knows that you're open and welcome to visitors by looking them in the eye, greeting people as they show up. Don't fidget. And then Sandy's going to talk about how you actually present this information without turning your back on people.
This is Pharmaceutical Rep 101. We actually had to learn how to write and present with an easel when we were in pharmaceutical sales. So the main thing you don't want to do is stand in front of your poster and turn around and face your poster and read it, because nobody knows who you are or what you're doing, and you're not engaging the person at all, right? It's the same kind of thing as when you go into lecture and the professor reads word for word for word on the PowerPoint slides, and that's all the professor does.
Or does this with a chalkboard.
Right, right. So there is a way to do this. Regardless if you're left-handed or you're right-handed, you always want to be open to your audience. So you will, right, exactly like Lisa's doing. You're going to stand facing your audience, and then you can just point. If you need to look over to your poster occasionally to reference a couple of things, perfectly fine. But have this memorized. Have where everything is memorized so that you can point to it while you're keeping eye contact with the people that you're interacting with. All right? And then the same thing goes for PowerPoint slides. If you have to do presentations with that, we even have to do this with our comm students. They will stand here at the podium and they'll do this and read the slide the whole time. No, know exactly what's on that slide so that you can continue to communicate with your audience. Does that make sense to you? Don't wear any jiggly, jingly, anything that is going to cause a distraction while you are pointing or presenting. If you have a little laser pointer and you're comfortable with using it, you can do that as well. You can do that as well with your PowerPoint slides.
There's also a scoot, an acceptable scoot. So let's say I want to drag everybody's attention over to this little picture over here. If somebody is standing here, the person I'm talking to is standing here, if I move forward to get to this, what are they going to do? Back up. So use that to your advantage. You don't have to say go back. You don't have to kind of try to wiggle around them. Just start moving forward, and they will naturally move backwards. And then you can get to whatever it is that you want to point to without turning your back on them.
Right, right. Does that make sense to you? And it seems like this is Barney-style preschool stuff that we might be telling you. Trust me, when you are nervous in front of people and you have never done this before, especially with things that you have to work with, whether it's a clicker or it's a microphone or it's a podium or it's posters, practice, 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 so that when you are in front of these people and you are a little bit nervous, you at least can feel confident that I know the stuff that's on here. I know where my chemostratigraphic zone is on this poster. All right?
Go to the next
Good?
one. I think we're.
Oh.
Have fun with it. And we just want to conclude with this part. And the idea here is that if you look like you are having fun with your presentation, whether it be a long research presentation, whether it be a poster presentation, whether it be a sales pitch, whatever it is, if you look like you're having a good time, you are more believable. That's the way it is. More credible. They believe that you know what you're talking about and will listen to you more. So try to have fun with it. Thank you all for coming.
Very much. Thank you.